Dinosaur Man.
Hello, and welcome to the Dinosaur Man News and Reviews. I'm Andy Hughes. I'm here with Alex Hudson. That
Is
came
it
out.
the Dinosaur Man news?
Yeah,
and
that came out
reviews?
weird, didn't it? As I was saying it, I was like, that doesn't sound
The
right.
Dinosaur Man? As if there can't be any others?
Yeah, we're a
What about our children's?
we're a singular article. We are the Dinosaur Man. Don't want those pretenders out there. There's Dinosaur Men.
You think there's like
Oh, there's
podcasts that are trying to cash in on our lack of popularity?
oh yeah, there's pretenders to this crown. But
Like-
if you come for the king, you better not miss.
Like when your grandmother buys you a video game for Christmas. Video game news already so early. And she buys Mario and Goobiji.
Did you ever have like one of those knockoff games or
No,
a game?
I was only strictly approved games.
Or do you have any like game that like you'd ask for something and you got something that was like similar, but
At one point, a game came into my possession, and it wasn't by purchasing.
you found it in the woods in a canvas bag?
No, I guess it must have been left after a sleepover or something. That was one of the sort of 25-in-1 cartridges.
Yeah.
And the obvious issue with that was that none of the games worked properly.
Ah,
But like that, I think that's a thing of all those 25-in-1 games. Like they
want you to play the first 4 and then not move past those.
But no, even the first 4 would glitch out because, like, I feel like Pokemon was definitely one of them. And, like, it would just, like, the moment you tried to leave Pallet Town material.
When I was a kid, I got a copy of Space Invaders. Have I told you this story?
I feel like you might
So-
have. I don't know. We've spoken about Space Invaders before.
I think my parents bought me Space Invaders for my PC because they were like, oh, he wants a game that he can play. And it went missing. And I was really upset because I was like, oh, I was enjoying it because it's like swanky graphics for the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of really cool.
You grew up in 1982.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, it's gone missing. Only to find out like 3 weeks later, my mom had stolen it because she'd installed it on the computer upstairs
Yeah.
just to see what it is, and had become addicted to it. And like every
Never
day,
told me this, I don't think.
every day she was coming home from work and playing Space. She disappeared for like 2 hours, and she was upstairs playing Space Invaders for like 2 hours solid.
This is insane.
This was when you would have known me. It was when we were in college.
What?
Yeah.
Hang on. And the graphics were swanky for the time.
Yeah, they were cool. Well, we were in that house.
It was
anyway.
Space Invaders, like the
Right.
arcade game.
Actually, no, it might not be in college. I just realised that like I moved out of that house in college.
Yeah, it better have been preschool.
It was at least secondary school.
Okay.
But yeah, my mum would basically play it for 2 hours, and then I didn't get that game back until it was basically run into the ground, and the disc hardly worked anymore.
I don't know. This I don't know if this sounds
My
real.
mum pretends that she doesn't like video games, that she doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
But she also got addicted to Farmville.
Yeah, but that's not really a video game, is it? It's more of a
She was constantly
it's more of a thing. I don't
tending
know.
to them crops.
So here's the thing is that I actually did remember a time that I didn't get exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so
Okay. Brace yourself.
So I actually remember when I was like 7 years old, I thought I was getting Space Invaders, but I got a multi-pack of Space Raiders instead of the crisps.
Actually, that's probably... What flavour?
Pickled onion, the
The
only
only flavour.
flavour. No, because don't go like the only flavour as if there's more flavours.
No.
I still feel like there can only ever be that
Don't
one
they-
flavour.
Don't they have a tomato flavour as well?
I thought that was Snaps.
Maybe.
Tomato. So here's the thing about tomato crisps.
Yeah.
I've never had a tomato ketchup crisp because I hate tomato ketchup, right? So, I don't know whether those are good. I'm presuming not. The tomato crisps that I grew up,
Of corn mazes where
and
you go
the
through them and you get
texture
lost.
of them was the most interesting thing. The taste was bad. The texture, great. And if they'd have made snaps, but made them not tomato flavoured.
Were they called Wheaties?
Wheaties,
circular
yeah, okay.
tubes.
Golden Wonders Wheaties.
Weird texture.
Yeah,
but
great-
I really
great texture.
kind of liked it.
Great texture.
Welcome to Dinosaur Man Podcast, the only podcast that talks about crisps and their varying flavors.
We could do that instead if you want. If we're in need of material for next week's episode, we'll do a crisp
week.
Crisp podcast.
But in actuality, we are the only podcast.
It sounded like you started that sentence and then stopped it
I started
mid-sentence.
it in the back of my throat. That's why.
Okay.
And then my mouth closed before I expected
I feel
it
guilty for interrupting you, so...
But in actuality, we are the only podcast in the world that talks news and reviews.
Yeah, we ain't trying to piggyback off any other podcasts that do exactly the same thing as us.
This week...
But for more people and are more famous.
This week, I think we're going to focus on movie news and reviews. I think that's probably where we're going to
I got video game news.
But before we get to the reviews, what are we reviewing? Because it's a stacked week for reviews.
Okay, we got 8 films and then we got like 15 different series as well, I feel. So, films we'll be reviewing today. Guns Akimbo, Freaky, Werewolves Within, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Fatherhood, The Forever Purge, Wrath of Man, The Waterman. And, in addition to this, Loki has finished.
Yes.
We haven't talked about that.
We haven't talked about it.
MODOK Minute, of course. Masters of the Universe Moment.
Yep.
And one more thing as well, I feel.
Was it you rewatching I Think You Should Leave Again?
No, but we'd already watched that before last week's episode. People don't need to know that it's good. It's already good. Okay.
Before we get to that absolute marathon of reviews, though, we must talk news. But
There'll be 2-word reviews.
Before we get to movie news, we must take a little jaunt down this alleyway that is called Gaming News.
I got spoiler alert for anyone who is looking forward to movie news. We ain't doing none. Gaming news. The Tokyo 2020 Olympics are underway, and each nation came out to a song from a different video game representing their nation. Russia came out to Tetris. They got two. It says here Australia came out to Wolf Creek, the video game simulator.
What about Thailand?
Came out to a video game adaptation of Bangkok Dangerous.
Oh, great.
The theme tune to that.
Uruguay.
Obviously. Uruguay came out to, I guess, I don't know, Luis Suarez simulator.
They weren't all winners, were they?
I mean, that's me not searching through and finding, but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw that was what it was.
But yeah, they came out to these...
Brazil came out to Brazil Nut Cracking Simulator. Madagascar came out to Madagascar, the video games theme song.
Did you see any Olympics yet?
Fucking hate the Olympics.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you an anti-Olympics?
Nothing. Right, I'm dead against anything that really relies on national pride being at the centre of it, because all nations are basically shit. And the idea of national pride, or like, oh, we are competing to be proven to be the best at this thing. Mm-hmm. I can throw a stick for a bit. You know?
Is that all you think the Olympics is?
Javelin is.
Throwing?
Javelin is. If you try and tell me that javelin is anything other than throwing a stick,
but is your
I will show you a clip of javelin and go, that's stick throwing.
But is your argument here, you can do that, therefore...
No, my argument is we shouldn't have a competition to work out which nation is the best at whatever thing. This actually, I feel like, is the reason that we have war.
The Olympics.
That kind of thing. The Olympics, Eurovision, World Cup, Euros, anything that tries to instill a sense of competition between nations, because this is just like war without guns, right? So if we got rid of this, we would be one step closer to the edge. Good Linkin Park reference. One step closer to eliminating war.
What about Airbud World Pup?
That, now, have you seen Airbud World Pup?
No, but I need to know if it's closer to bringing us to war or to reconciliation.
He represents golden retrievers, and that's fine. I don't mind infighting between dog breeds.
Oh, so you're into dog fighting, but you hate athletics.
I mean, in an ideal world, all dogs would fight each other until there were no dogs left, I guess.
Wow. Who would have thought this would be the episode that cancelled us?
Sorry, guys, we're not doing movie news because I'm too busy getting on my soapbox.
The show you showed me, where The Rock hosts, and it's just a lot of people like hitting big stone stuff.
What was the one that Prince Harry was involved with? The Invictus Games.
Yeah.
It was a different thing.
A little bit, yeah.
I was trying to remember. I was like, was that called the Titan Games? And I thought maybe you'd watched it. Anyway, no. I haven't watched any of the Olympics. I haven't watched the opening ceremony. I made up a story about the video game thing because whatever.
Because there were video game music played as the athletes came in. That bit is true.
Yeah, well, also, guess what? We need a new term for video games, says the New York Times. Seriously. Peloton, Netflix, Zoom, TikTok, Amazon, Apple, and Google are either experimenting or going bigger into video games. What are we going to call these things? Peloton video games? The Nintendo Peloton?
The Peloton games. That sounds like it could be...
Mario and Luigi work out in their flats while crying? Because they've paid $1,000 for a subscription to a thing that they use once a week?
Well, this guy goes, "Hey, Mario in Mushroom Kingdom, I can see you smashing it out there."
The Sony TikTok machine? The PlayStation Talk?
Cool.
The Xbox Zoom 60? Who can mute someone fast enough on a group chat? I win. What do you win? Oh. I don't know. You paid $60 for this video game.
My ability to mute myself on a works call at speed is incredible.
This is fucking trash.
Video games are trash.
I've been saying this for decades. Anyway.
Expect a new episode of Dinosaur 64 at some point in the future.
Yeah, and guess what? I ain't going to hold back on my opinions in that either. So, sorry guys if you thought, oh, maybe I'll have calmed down by then. If anything, I'll probably be more angry, because by that time I would have played Peloton's video game.
Also, sign up to our Twitter channel at Dinosaur Man Pod, where soon we'll be doing...
It's not just for games.
We'll soon be playing games.
No.
I'll be playing games and you'll be there.
Thank you. I will be in the room, and I will be turned away from the television.
But still holding your microphone.
Mm-hmm. Microphones aren't video games. Just in case you needed to find that out.
Wow.
Here's a harsh truth for you guys. You thought you grew up and everyone was like, oh, microphones are video games. They're not, and your parents are dumb.
I'm learning.
Okay.
So,
moving on.
That was video games.
Yeah. That was video games. That was all of video games.
So you said we got no movie news.
What's happened? Oh, a movie came out. Oh, a movie didn't come out. That's all that... Guys, this is why we don't watch the real news anymore.
Should we start talking about real news in its place?
Okay, let me just...
Don't Google.
News. Just gonna find out news.
Everything is awful.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna read any of these news stories out because they're too sad. But Boris Johnson.
Oh, no.
Boris Johnson has unveiled a crime-beating plan as he emerges from isolation. I would like to think that he's wearing blankets.
I like to imagine it, like, as the door opens to where he's been isolated, there's just lots of doodles on the wall where he's just been writing up new policies.
Yeah, and someone's been able to, like, snap a quick pic and seen a bit that says crime-beating plan, and they've taken that as a news story and run with it.
And it's a picture of Boris Johnson, but in, like, a cape, and he's just punching a criminal who's wearing a swag bag. I saw that he had a...
Why is it that we prioritise bad news, by the way?
Because it gets more clicks.
It's not getting my click, I'm telling you that now. I've just had to scroll through an entire page of deaths.
Wow.
And now I'm getting to football transfer news. Fine. China has imposed sanctions on US officials. See, I told you, this is all Olympics related.
This is your good news. So we got no...
It's been hot. That's the news.
It has been hot. I'm pretty sure there probably has been some news, but...
Fine, there's an AI breakthrough that's going to spark a medical revolution that can... It's the thing that can break down structural compounds and stuff.
Revolution!
I don't know. And also, Paul Pogba's got a contract situation. Okay?
There you go, guys. There's all your news. There was one thing I was going to mention. So, trailers this week. Yeah, we understand there's been a Dune trailer.
We won't be reporting on it.
You've not watched it, have you?
Don't want to. The thing is, I am now 100% convinced this could be as batshit bad as David Lynch's Dune. I would love it if it was.
As a whole.
But you're going to read all the books before the film.
I'm on page 1.
Mm-hmm. Hey, would it help if I told you there's a video game?
Ooh. Would that help me in advance of the movie?
I don't know. The rate you sometimes play video games, probably not.
To be like,
It's on PlayStation 5 or 4 or whatever your one is.
So I went on a website called How Long to Beat.
Can we, just before you get into this, for the first time in maybe a year, and you said you needed to do something on it?
Basically, I turned it on for a reason. I can't remember what it was, but I took the disc out. It had been in there for a year.
Yeah.
But then it had to be unplugged again because we needed to plug the fan in. And it was very hot.
Did the HDMI ever connect to the television to show you a PlayStation screen?
No.
Okay, so you've got so far as plugging it in but not actually switching it on?
No, it turned on because I had to get the disc out.
Okay.
So it made the noise, the noise of you just hit yourself in the face.
Nearly. I narrowly avoided dropping my microphone onto my face.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's just important to tell the people that of the two of us, I may have the harder line stance on video games, but you're actively just not playing a whole console.
I played my Xbox.
And you switched it on for the first time in at least 12 months, I feel. Yeah, definitely 12 months.
I completed
Spider-Man was the last game you played on there?
No, Uncharted.
Haven't seen Nathan Drake for a long time, I'm going to tell you that now. I think the movie's going to come out before you play that. Anyway, you went on How Long to Play.
Yeah, I went on How Long to Beat, and I've looked up another game that I was playing, Spiritfarer.
Yes.
And it was like, it takes say 15 hours to beat it completely, or maybe 18 hours.
Comprehensively.
I played that game for a day and a half, according to my time. My ability to complete games is really slow.
Yeah. But that's fine. It means that you get value for money. Yeah. Because a lot of people will complain. Not done yet. A lot of people will complain. So when Miles Morales came out, they said, it's kind of like DLC, not a whole game, guys. It's only 6 hours long, so skip it. You'd make that game last a fucking decade if you had to. And you'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've got years of enjoyment out of this one. And it only cost me $70.
Let's hope they don't make any more video games, and I gotta stop buying them.
So that's, you know what? That's enough now. I'm gonna put my foot down. Okay.
Did you watch this trailer?
No, I've got no interest in this film.
In my mind, I'm done with Jackass. I watched it a lot when I was a kid, and it was always this kind of thing of being like, oh god, why are they doing this? Oh, they're just hurting each other. But also found it quite funny. But then I got to that age where I'm like, I'm done with this, and all the kind of other things that came off the back of that, people like Dirty Sanchez and stuff like that, I always felt they were too much. And they announced this, and I was like, they're a bit old for Jackass. I watched this trailer, and I was like, I kind of really want to see this film now. And it kind of brought this kind of weird nostalgia to me of being like, actually, I do think I want to go for one last time with these guys. They've all basically said their bodies are broken and they really shouldn't be doing this. And in my head, I'm like, your bodies are broken and you really shouldn't be doing this. But just watching that trailer made me kind of go, yeah, but I kind of just want to see this one last time. And I don't know, it was a really weird situation where I thought I was done with it. Yeah. And I don't know if it's partially because I saw what Eric Andre's Bad Trip this year. And I thought that was, I enjoyed it enough, but it is kind of like a pale imitation of kind of what Jackass is. That makes me kind of go, okay, let me watch this.
But it's his more of a hidden camera thing rather than a stupid stunt.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? His was more there's a story to his, and they definitely did a lot of stuff in public where they just kind of got real people's reactions. While Jackass,
because I suppose his is more pranks, whereas theirs is stunts almost. Yeah. But or self pranks, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, the trailer looked really fun, and I think anybody who enjoyed the original, they did 3 films, was it, or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyone who enjoyed that, I think we might get the same kind of kick out of this. And I think the fact that there's been that absence for a bit, kind of, because I think they did saturate themselves, where they just did everything they could, strike while the iron's hot. But there was a lot of it during that early period, whenever that was, when I was a child, basically.
Yeah.
But having that absence now and then coming back to it, I think this could be fun. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it.
Okay. Moving on. Reviews.
Yes.
TV.
Let's start there.
MODOK Minute. But it's been another 2 weeks.
Apparently it's all up now, so I could just watch it.
Oh, well, if as if that was the thing that was stopping you.
The problem is, right, I've never realised I can get like an episode of TV in on my lunch break at work. So I've been watching all of Harley Quinn during that, because I was still had a sick series of that to watch. And I could be using that for MODOK, and I'll basically now probably pick up MODOK when that's done. But I did say I'm going to start watching Ted Lasso. I don't know. Maybe MODOK will be watched. Apparently it was still enjoyable enough. Some people hated it.
Well, don't worry, guys. I'll never watch MODOK. But I've never made the promise that I would. I ain't even seen the first 2 episodes
I watched
yet.
2 episodes.
Yeah.
That's further than some people got.
And did you like it?
It was alright. Some good
It
bits.
left the worst taste in your mouth, according to your viewing since. I think it's been over a month and a half since you watched those 2 episodes.
Yeah, but I've had a lot on.
Okay, that's fine. You've had a lot on.
I've been busy.
Like, if you didn't want to watch an episode of Bake Off in the evening, you could have just said,
Hey.
I don't want to watch an episode of Bake Off, can I
Hey,
watch
hey.
an episode of MODOK?
Great British Bake Off has been great.
Anyway.
Late to the party, but it's great just to have a really nice show.
Loki has ended.
Yes.
For now. That's not a spoiler. Yeah, first series of Loki finished a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I think we talked about it when it had episode 5 of 6. So since then, we've just had the finale, in which I would say 40 minutes of it is talking about a thing that you don't get to see.
Yeah. A lot of exposition and a lot of, this could be happening if this happens.
Shouldn't have spent all their budget on Captain America and the Winter Soldier or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know, so we've been talking about this the whole time. And I think it still counts for the finale, which is, I don't know what I think about this series. I think...
Oh, I know what I think.
Well, I know you think it's bad. And I think it's really... I don't know, it never grabbed me.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, it's kind of dull. There were moments where it felt like it could be doing something interesting, could be doing something fun. And I think the most interesting part about this series is what it does for the rest of the MCU.
Yeah. But
we have proven before that a film that is basically just set up for something else isn't always the most well received. It's why, Iron Man 2 and Age of Ultron are pretty much not looked at too fondly.
Yeah.
Because those are the films that are basically, yes, they have your Iron Man story or your Avengers story, but a lot of them are doing legwork for the rest of what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. There are some nice things, and there's some bits about the TVA and kind of the way that whole system in the time police sort of thing aspect works, and that kind of Doctor Who aspect of it works at times, but at others it is all just kind of, this is legwork for something else.
Yeah.
A second season of this might change now that the wheels are in motion. But I also feel that maybe Loki wasn't the most interesting person in his series.
Yeah.
And that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I get that you've got a lot to do to set up because you've decided... I guess you've just decided you don't want to set up within movies anymore, which is maybe okay, I guess.
Yeah.
But people might get annoyed about that, I guess.
So here's a question. I think I asked it on Twitter the other day, and I don't know if I asked it of you. How do you feel about this idea of, to understand the films, you are likely going to have to shell out for Disney Plus and watch the series?
Almost like that was their plan the whole time. Yeah, I mean, they should be... I think, well, first of all, each film should work in of itself. and even when they're interconnected, I think most of the films still do that. But in terms of being able to understand the overall plot thing, introducing a brand new villain, the way they've introduced the villain in Loki means that they still have to reintroduce him in a film.
Yeah.
In the way that ended. So I guess they're kind of covering themselves there, because you probably don't need to know about what happened in Loki in order to understand the arrival of this villain in Ant-Man or whatever it is. So it kind of feels like, oh, okay, you've left yourself enough wiggle room to go, you don't actually have to see the TV series. You can if you want to, and they're there. And we'd recommend it because actually his first appearance was in Loki.
Yeah.
It's clever on their part, I guess. At the same time, I think they know that the majority of their audience are going to watch every single thing related to, the diehard fans will watch all of that. And yet, the casual moviegoers probably won't be interested. I mean, we've seen as much with things like Black Widow, where it kind of feels like the Marvel fans probably went to that more than the general fans. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe it's just a case of they'll now pick and choose the stuff they're going to. I mean, the interesting thing is the death of the Avengers as a franchise kind of feels like you've then gone, oh, okay, well, a lot of people are going to get off board at this point because they're kind of done with that story, because the recognizable faces that you had, they're all gone now.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people who dropped off after Endgame, people like Mark, yourself, who went, actually, like, you were, let's be honest, you were probably done before then, but you kind of went,
I watched them out of an obligation, yeah.
But you kind of went, I'll watch Spider-Man, I think you said, and was there one other you said you'd watch?
I'll watch Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange movie, and the Fantastic Four if John Watts ends up doing it still.
Yeah, and so, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of went, but there are still going to be that audience who watch it. I was just interested to get your opinion. So, obviously you didn't like this series.
No, I didn't think it was very good at all. The thing is, I think the idea behind it is so big that it kind of feels like this should have come up earlier.
Yeah.
And it does feel, it does feel like an afterthought, in the same way that the Black Widow movie felt like an afterthought. It just kind of feels like this is just a case of, well, we had to find a thing to do with him that allowed him to be impactful within the MCU, Loki and the villain. We're really fucking dancing around that shit.
I don't know if we should say it.
No, that's probably fine. And I think they've probably found this thing, and then they've gone, well, this will be it, and we can't kill off Loki anyway because he's a fan favourite, and thus there's a second series of this coming now. Mm-hmm. And other than the score and the production design and, well, the production design within the TVA, everything else I think looks dog shit.
Yeah.
And then, and Owen Wilson. Those are the three highlights for me. So, if you gave me more of Owen Wilson doing paperwork inside the TVA building, I'd probably like it.
Well, the score just plays
with
over
score
the
in the background. I don't want any dialogue. It's fine.
I know some people who absolutely loved this, and some people were in a group chat with absolutely adore this series and had a great time.
Yeah,
and that's fine. There are going to be people who like it, but I totally agree. It just wasn't for me. This one,
right?
Should I briefly talk about Masters of the Universe?
Snoochie Boochies. It's time for Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe.
I have no idea what Snoochie Boochie is.
It's from every Kevin Smith movie. Okay. It's a Jay and Silent Bob thing, right? So, Snooch to the Booch. What's going on in the world of Eternia?
That is potential. Yes, that's true.
You've watched the series. I'd hope you fucking know.
Yeah. I've watched it all over.
I'm doing the heavy lifting by going Snoochie Boochies.
So this is the animated series of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, basically. A kind of reboot of that. And it's a story of basically... So there's a problem here, and I kind of understand it. But some people on the internet are very angry about it.
It's called Masters of the Universe Revelation.
Yes. This series is not about He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
At all.
But it just says Masters of the Universe.
So, yeah. But if you watch the trailer for this, this series shows a lot of He-Man and a lot of Skeletor. And you believe this
I'm
series...
seeing bait and switch everywhere when I search for this.
This series basically advertises itself as a He-Man story. Everything you see in that trailer is in the first episode.
Okay.
Because after that, there is no He-Man.
Okay.
Like, spoiler alert, there's no He-Man after the first episode.
After we dance so elegantly around.
Yeah, well, no, the reason is because it becomes a story about Teela, I want to say, who is a secondary character in it, who basically is the primary of this series. And I guess the reason it's called Master of the Universe is because it's about her and her trying to save Eternia. And I didn't like that in the sense that you've basically sold me on a He-Man series, and I kind of wanted to relive the nostalgia of my youth and the He-Man series I watched as a kid. By the end of the series, the 5 episodes that are out at the moment, like it's a 10-episode run, half is out now. I don't know when the other half comes out, but by the end of it, I understand what you've done, and there is a really interesting cliffhanger that it leaves it on. But I also understand why people are angry that this series was sold to them as a He-Man fronted series, and that's not what you get. I think the story is a bit dragging at times. The animation is beautiful. Like, it's genuinely gorgeous. It's proper Sunday morning cartoons style, and it looks really polished, and it looks incredible. I just think sometimes the story doesn't back up that animation. It definitely just dives into things, so like it gives you no chance to kind of understand who these people are. Yeah, you've kind of just got to pick that up as you go along, which is fine. I got there in the end, but yeah, I understand why the people who are upset thinking this was a He-Man series are upset because it isn't. The people who are upset because this is fronted by a woman, they're dickheads, and a lot of people are upset because this is a woman Master of the Universe series, and this isn't, this is somebody, basically the Go Work, Go Broke Brigade, who've basically review bombed this, and like giving it 1 out of 10s because it's Teela at the forefront. I think that kind of pays off by the 5th episode, but I do it's that weird kind of balance of that. I kind of wish this was a He-Man series because that's what I wanted to see, but I understand why you didn't, and actually there is something really interesting by the end of that 5th episode. Does that pay off the kind of flabbiness between episodes 2 and 4? I don't know. It's a That'll Do Pig.
It looks like the next part is next year. Yeah. I think.
I'd be interested to speak to some.
I can't really find a definite thing, but it seems to be 2022.
But yeah, it's okay. That it's not a very rousing thing. Like I said, the cliffhanger it leads on is really cool.
Will they get to the movies on time? That's another Kevin Smith reference.
In my opinion, right?
Yeah.
I would honestly go, oh yeah, watch that first episode. Enjoy the bask in the animation, really enjoy that. And then maybe just watch the 5th. But only like the 5th from like halfway through. Because actually it sets up the next 5 for something really interesting. But yeah, enjoy the animation, really. That's the main thing. Okay.
So that is on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I don't think I even mentioned that.
No, you didn't. That's why I did. Yeah. Snoochie Boochies. That's all we can say on that.
Shall we talk some movies?
We better fucking do it.
Wow.
Because otherwise...
You wash out that dog mouth. Don't look at the timing.
Woof, woof. It's my dog mouth. Did you not like that? You didn't like it. Okay. You're taking a drink, but I know you didn't like it.
I took a long sip as I basked in the glory of that joke.
Okay. Look, I think I've been carrying the show so far, to be honest.
Where do you want to start?
I guess it makes sense to start with the films that only one of us have seen.
Okay.
So do you want to... I also realise... We'll talk about that after the podcast. It's fine. Wrath of Man.
Okay.
Why don't you hit me with that?
So, Wrath of Man is the new Guy Ritchie directed. Did he write it as well?
He co-wrote the script, which is an adaptation of the film Cash Truck from 2004.
So, Wrath of Man is about Jason Statham's character called H. I'm pretty sure that's what his name
He was formerly in Steps.
Who basically is this unknown quantity kind of guy. He's very kind of mellow, doesn't really say much, brooding, and he joins this company that basically escort cash to different locations in cash trucks, and he joins the depot, and when one of these cash trucks are hit, H displays a set of skills that makes me go, maybe he's here for an ulterior motive.
He has a particular set of skills.
Yeah, he's a lot more talented than he lets on.
Mm-hmm.
And why is he joining this company, and what is he actually there to do? That's kind of the setup without giving really anything away.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is it's basically people dealing with people trying to rob these cash trucks. These trucks that have sometimes thousands to millions of dollars in them, and kind of what that economy is like. As a Guy Ritchie film, like, you know me, I'm a Guy Ritchie fan. I really like his stuff. Even like in some of his worst stuff, I can find stuff to enjoy. I think this isn't Guy Ritchie. Like, it doesn't feel like a Guy Ritchie movie. It doesn't have the way that I think it doesn't have any kind of like his directorial flair to it. It doesn't have much of his writing snap to it, but I think that you really want. And when that's missing, this film is just a bit dull. It has certain moments in it that I kind of went, okay, I enjoy that enough. But there's a lot of it where I'm like, okay, it's just a bit of nothing. Mm-hmm. Especially when it gets towards the end and it has an ending that, like, in a Guy Ritchie movie should be entertaining and fun. Like, when I look back at stuff like Lock, Stock and Snatch and all those kind of things, like, the kind of stuff that he does well, like the way that he can end a film, this really should have been that, and it just has no effect.
Yeah.
Another huge problem is that I don't know if I'm supposed to like the character of H, because you don't put him across. Like, you tried to show him as this kind of hero character and somebody that you should be rooting for, but at the same time you show him to be like the worst person, and then you give us a glimpse into some of the robbers, like these people who are trying to take on the cash trucks. Mm-hmm. And these are the people that you're supposed to... These are your antagonists. These are people you're supposed to not like. But then you also give us a heroic backstory to them. And you go, well, am I supposed to not like these people or not? Like, what am I supposed to feel to these people? And you could be saying, oh, you know, it's not a very binary code. You're supposed to, like, feel certain different things. It's supposed to make you feel complex emotions. But you don't write your characters well enough for you to have that kind of conflict in yourself. Instead, you just make it confusing. And I think that's its biggest problem, is that it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a garble. And it's a shame, because I really like Guy Ritchie. I really like him, and I really wanted to like this. And I just felt it was a bit naff. I wouldn't recommend it. I think there is much better Guy Ritchie out there, and there are much better versions of this sort of film that aren't by him.
Okay, so The Waterman. This is available on Netflix. It's the directorial feature debut of David Oyelowo, based on a screenplay by Emma Needell, and sort of tells the tale of a young boy called Gunnar Boone who has recently moved to the Pacific Northwest in America. His mother's ill, and he's struggling to cope with sort of compartmentalizing his life in that way. His father's just come back from a tour of duty with the Navy, and he's not really able to connect with his son, because his son is having to deal with the fact that he's been exposed to this illness, and the son is now taking solace in his graphic novel that he's drawing. And he decides he meets someone who basically tells him of this legend of the Waterman, which is a real life sort of folk legend of a man who beat death, essentially. And there is potentially a way to take his power from him if you go and find him and search him out, but no one really knows where he lives apart from this one girl who seems to know everything because she claims to have met him and bested him in combat before. It's a really interesting film. It kind of blends a couple of things together, and David Oyelowo has talked about it being an homage to the movies that he really liked when he was growing up, things like The Goonies, sort of young adult adventure stuff. And there is elements of that to it. And I think the central bond between Lonnie Chavis, who plays Gunnar Boone, and then Amaya Miller, who plays Jo, the girl who he goes on this adventure with, I think their central bond is really good and gives you a sense of camaraderie that sort of puts you in mind of some of those types of movies. You kind of get the sort of magical realism of that kind of thing.
That's really interesting, because the way you described that, like the plot, isn't what I expected that film to be. Like, the way you described it, like, I didn't expect that to be like a Goonies type adventure. I thought it was going to be this kind of like thriller, kind of find the folk tale, what if it is a real sort of thing. What's
interesting is that there, alongside that, there definitely is there is a slight horror element to it.
Because that's what I thought it sounded like.
In the same way that something like Candyman tells that folk tale.
Exactly what I was thinking, yeah.
And there is one scene that is really, I think, it captures that spirit quite well as sort of still blending it with the tone that it's been going with for the duration of the film. I really, really like this. I think it benefits from the fact that it is relatively stripped down in terms of what it's trying to do. The adventure itself doesn't have grand set pieces and doesn't have huge things going on. It's a small adventure, but it is enough, and it is what you want from this film. I think David Oyelowo's got a good eye for direction. I think this is really solidly put together, and yet again, I mean, David Oyelowo is someone who's never shied away from the fact that he's painfully aware that representation in film needs to be more diverse. And this is very easily a film that, if it was made by another filmmaker, may well have just had a white cast and just gone, there you go. That's, but he's made a concerted effort to make sure that he's representing people he wants to see on screen. And he was saying, for my kids, if this is then the thing that is their Goonies or whatever, then that's great, because when I was growing up, they weren't making films about young black boys doing that kind of thing.
Going on an adventure.
And all you were seeing from the Hollywood system was you would occasionally see a black character as a supporting role, or you would see it as one of the friends, but it would never be your lead. And here you've got this young kid who is really good in the role, I think. Yeah, I'd really recommend this. It's on Netflix. It's called The Waterman, and I think there's enough in it of... I think it's an interesting one, because I feel like it will be for sort of... Families may well watch this. If they've got kids who are sort of 10, 11 years old or whatever, I think they will watch this and really enjoy this. And I really liked certain elements of it that have stuck with me for the week and a bit since I saw it. So yeah, I really, really like this. So yeah, that's available on Netflix now.
Shall I talk briefly about another Netflix thing that I saw? So I watched Fatherhood, which is the story. It's Kevin Hart led film, basically about a guy who when his daughter is born, his partner passes away.
Yeah.
Within a day of her being born. And it's all about him coming to terms with the fact that he is now the sole guardian of this child. And his parents, grandparents on both sides, and his friends are all like, you can't raise this child on your own. Like, we know who you are. I think his name's Miles. Like, we know who you are. We know the kind of person you are, and you're not strong enough to do this. You don't live nearby the family support network. Move back home and we will look after it, or, let us help you. And he basically takes the decision of, no, I am this girl's father. I'm going to raise her on my own, without the mother. Like, I'm going to do it. And it takes place over 2 time periods. The first time period is when she's a little girl, like a little baby, and then it's about 10 years later. And you kind of see kind of how he progresses in time. And it's a film with a lot of heart. No pun intended. But it's a film that has very much a belief of, like, you want this guy to succeed. And he struggles, and he really struggles. And it really puts across that idea of, like, how hard it is to be a single father, especially to a baby, in a dominated world of, when that support network is there for new parents, it is predominantly focused towards the mother.
Yeah.
And where's the support network for the father? And it asks that without ever really demonizing the system, but being like, if you are in this situation, how do you get there? How do you succeed? And never really puts any of that, so like the stresses and the times when, like, he feels he can't do it, and the times when it feels like it's too much. You understand that. And I think anyone who is a parent or has been around children will definitely have those things where they completely understand why he's feeling the way he is and how that gets him. And, it's stuff like him. There's a bit in the trailer where he goes into this room full of, like, new mothers, and they're like, and he's like, I just don't know what to do. She's been crying for like a week, and I just don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, but this is for new mothers. And he's like, yeah, but I'm lost. I don't know what's happening here. And I think he does it so well. Like, he plays, I think I said this to you before, Kevin Hart has these performances in him where you tone down the Kevin Hartness of it. Or, you can have those moments in there, and he does have those moments in there of a slight over-the-topness, but actually it's very kind of subdued. And he's very good at playing that. And when you get that kind of performance out of him, I think he does it very well.
Yeah.
I think the other star of the show is, and I completely forgot her name, the one from Clemency.
Alfre Woodard.
Alfre Woodard plays the mother of the partner who passed away. And she plays this role of a mom who basically wants to love her grandchild, but also that grandchild is a stark reminder of the child she has lost. And her attitude towards Miles, I'm going to stick with Miles because I'm pretty sure that's Matt.
There is a Miles in another film we watched this week.
But her attitude towards Matt in this film is played incredibly well. Like, it's a really beautiful kind of portrayal of that sort of grief. I think you especially, I think, might watch this and go, oh, this is actually like I've probably seen better versions of this. And I think there probably are better versions of this film out there. But for what it is, it's open to like a wide scale audience, been on Netflix. It's not the kind of film that I watch very often, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought there's a lot of heart to this film. I would recommend it, and especially like if you are a parent or you've been through that. I haven't, but I still got a lot of it. And I think parents definitely would get a lot out of that situation.
So, just a bit of background information here. So, this was based on a memoir by Matthew Loughlin called Two Kisses from Maddie, a memoir of loss and love, which I'm presuming is pretty much the account that you then get in the film. Originally, because that's a 2011 memoir, in 2015, the rights got bought and Channing Tatum was going to star and produce it. And then Kevin Hart came in 2019 and replaced him. So interesting that was the sort of genesis of it. It was and on the face of it, like, that is a very Channing Tatum type of project to take on. And I think I've seen him do very similar types of things before.
It's the kind of thing I could imagine someone like Chris Evans doing.
Oh yeah, like what was it, Gifted?
Yeah.
Yeah, something there in that kind of wheelhouse. Yeah. So that is Netflix.
It's a really good one for Kevin Hart, and I think he's done really well with it.
Yeah. Okay, so
are we on to ones we've both seen now, or do you still
Yes, we're on to ones we've both seen now. So the Forever Purge. So this is
I haven't seen this.
Huh?
I've not seen it.
Sorry, I meant to say yes. This is the last one that I have seen. So the Forever.
I forgot you'd seen this.
The Forever Purge. This is the continuation and possibly culmination. I can't ever work these things out of the sort of American electoral political horror franchise that seems to have been going on for about 10 years now. So directed by Everardo Gout and written by James DeMonico, who was the guy who created and wrote the first one, and I think directed the first one as well. So there's some continuity in terms of the writing behind it, and the writing behind it is very on brand for The Purge. So story is that the America is divided. It's more divided than ever. The fact that whoever the character was in the third film who got elected as president and banned the Purge and got rid of it hasn't helped the situation, because there's not enough jobs. People are taking too many jobs. There's rumours that things aren't going too well within the government. There's a wall that's been erected between America and Mexico.
What? Where did they get that idea?
And we pick up our story. We see two Mexican refugees escaping from Mexico, where they've had to flee from drug cartels who've been taking over their land. And they flee into America. And then some time passes, and we then pick up with them involved in their first purge.
I genuinely thought you were going to say they escape into the USA and it's purge night, and it's like, oh no.
No. So some time passes, purge comes around, and they're working on a ranch. The guy's working on the ranch, and then the woman is in like a meat packing factory, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like that's right, but details are hazy about this film already. And they go into lockdown in a sort of compound where a lot of... so it looks like the local sort of immigrant Mexican community has locked down there, and they've all paid for the security staff to be there. So, they've got a plan. Mm-hmm. And the plan works fine, and the next morning comes and no one has died.
That's a good plan.
The purge has happened without them being involved in it. Roll credits, right? No. So they go to work the next day, and the woman goes to work at the meatpacking factory, and she sees a goat in a cage out back. She goes, "Oh, what's this weird goat doing here? We better release it." The cage then traps her. It's a trap.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And then she's told, this purge ain't never ending. This is Forever Purge.
Oh my god. Roll opening credits.
Mm-hmm. Cue everyone applauding because they said the movie. And then the guy goes to his ranch where he finds his bosses have been basically put at gunpoint by some people who feel like they're underpaid and underprivileged, and they're finally getting one up on the man, just like in the rest of the movies. Mm-hmm. And yet, maybe they have a savior who works for them and is from Mexico and is our lead hero. Maybe they have a savior. The rest of the movie then devolves into, there is this Forever Purge going on. So this is a concerted effort across the US where people are still purging.
But it only said for 12 hours.
Yeah.
The 12 hours are up.
Well, turns out 12 hours can be forever. The Purge gets called a couple of things during it. So occasionally the Forever Purge, also the Ever After Purge, and also the Eternal Purge, I think.
Purge Forever After. The fairy tale we tell all our children.
So what ends up happening is that Canada and Mexico open their borders to American refugees.
Wow.
So they will take in unarmed American citizens who are fleeing the Purge, but only for the next 6 hours. The ticking clock is in place. Will they get to the border?
Always a
Let's
clock.
find out. So the issues with the Purge series are many.
Does it have an alert that says all refugees, including Americans, are legal for the next 6 hours?
So the political sort of satire of the Purge series is as evident and as blunt as it has ever been here. The Purge movies are not subtle in their messaging.
Subtle as a brick.
And yet, the more I think about it, the more I feel like I'm too harsh on this film. I don't think I like it. I don't think it's good. And I do feel like I'm just getting to that point with the Purge where I'm like, I thought we'd done.
Yeah.
Like, they did Purge Anarchy, Purge election year, and that felt like the end because she got elected and she banned the Purge.
Yeah.
But then they re-elected the the new founding fathers, so they had to do the Purge again. But like they went and did the first Purge after that.
Yeah.
And then they had a Purge TV series. And now they've had to do, oh, well, we're back in the real timeline. We're at the end of that timeline. But guess what? The Purge is back now.
Gotta keep purging.
I don't think they do because this movie hasn't made a lot of money. I mean, the thing is, it will make more than its budget easily because it's not an expensive movie. But at the same time, it just kind of feels like, what's your end game here? And I feel like this has to be the end because you've kind of done everything now. And yeah, there's bits that feel like, oh, well, interesting how this has come out, and it's just after the January the 6th stuff, with the Capitol riots, and it kind of feels like there's a bit of that going on, and there's literally no way they could have predicted that happening.
Could they not?
Well, I mean, but not to that degree. I mean, people...
I'm not saying that Blumhouse incited the Capitol riots.
Good. As we cannot afford that lawsuit.
As a bit of, viral guerrilla marketing.
And they timed the release just in time for the court cases.
Unfortunately, things got pushed back,
Well, what's interesting is this film should have come out last year.
So this
could have inspired that if they'd have known. But it just turns out that it was in the zeitgeist.
But we're
already.
definitely not saying that in case anyone from Blumhouse
Look, it's not... look, I don't think it's good, but I can see that people might think it's one of the better Purges, which is probably true.
Yeah.
Is that an endorsement of its quality? Not particularly. And this isn't me saying, go out and see it post-haste. This is me saying, would not recommend, but yeah, maybe a career highlight for the... Other than... No, because I think Purge Anarchy was missed opportunity.
Purge Anarchy is a lot
Purge
of
Election
fun.
Year was very funny. Purge Election Year was the hilarious one.
Oh, yes, that's the one Yumi and Barrett watched.
So maybe that's it. Or is... I don't know. Anyway.
Which was the one that had...
I think that was the Party in the USA one.
Okay. That's Purge Election Year.
No, actually, maybe... No, it can't be. Anyway, doesn't matter. The Purges, you'll know if you like it.
Okay. Shall we carry on?
Yeah, I guess we should.
Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to Werewolves Within.
Okay.
So Werewolves Within, comedy horror, directed by Josh Rubin. This is from a screenplay by Mishna Wolf. Wonder how they got the gig.
Misha Wolf. Me is our wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Based on the video game of the same name. So this is like we talked about this previously on the pod. It's like Mafia or Murder.
Yeah.
Murder, I think it's just called.
Or in the game
Or Werewolves.
Yeah.
Where, people go to bed and then someone wakes up dead.
Yeah, and it's like...
And you got to find out who the werewolf is before they get the whole town. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a werewolf on the loose, guys, and we got to find out. So Sam Richardson plays new ranger in town, Finn, who is assigned to cover a tiny little town called Beaverfield. And he's taken the assignment, and he's miles away from his girlfriend, who has decided it's a good thing for him to be as far away from her as possible, and probably best if they don't speak or they don't see each other during that time either. And he still thinks they're going out, but it quickly becomes evident that he has been dumped. He meets Cecily, who is the male person, as she corrects him, in the town, who seems to know everyone's secrets. And everyone's secrets seem to be involving a oil line.
Yep.
Which creates some tension.
Because the oil line will make people rich, but some people say it will also destroy the environment.
You know what? I didn't move here for the wealth. I moved here for the trees.
Yeah. I think that might be an actual line from the film.
I think that is. And a dog ends up dead, and a dead body is then discovered, and it quickly becomes evident that there may be a werewolf on the loose.
And you might think that's a sudden kind of change in tone to our description of the plot, but that's pretty much the deftness it's handled within the film as well.
It does feel like it is very much like, oh, everything's sort of small town charm, and this bumbling ranger he's an out of towner, so he doesn't really get their ways. And then also there's a dead body here, and we need to lock it down immediately. So this film kind of snuck up on us in that we weren't aware it existed until maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's now out on rental and purchase on digital platforms. Look, it's weird.
So there is definitely, I thought, to begin with, and I'm really having to kind of labour this point, to begin with, I thought, there's some quaint charm here.
Yeah.
But I feel it quickly wears thin. There are moments in it that I think are still fun, but they are very few and far between. And I think the disappointment for me with this film is that I think you could have done something really interesting and nice with it. And I think there are seeds in it that it could have been that. It definitely could have had more of it. But it's another film that becomes dull. Like, it's just really a bit of a slog by the end of it.
Yeah.
I think its benefit is it has Sam Richardson in it. And let's be honest, the main reason we watch this is because we like Sam Richardson.
Yeah.
And he does his best.
And we also love Ubisoft film and television production.
Well, let's not forget that Ubisoft still haven't, dealt with allegations of abuse within their industry, and especially within their studio, effectively. And I think that's something that you almost remember about Ubisoft and keep holding them to account until they do. But otherwise, let's talk about Werewolves Within. Yeah, I know you saw Scare Me, the last film by...
Yeah, the last thing that Josh Rubin did. Scare Me, I felt, was a premise that probably had 15 to 20 minutes in it and was stretched to a feature. And I just didn't think there was enough in it to qualify that for...
Would you say that's much difference to this, though? Do you not think this...
No, because I don't think this... I mean, I don't think anything was good in this, apart from Sam Richardson.
But a lot of it outstays its welcome, I feel. Like, for a film that isn't long...
Oh, I think it outstays its welcome by about 89 minutes.
But I think you can do this kind of film really well.
Yeah, you've made it... Well, there was a better version of it last year is the problem.
Well, and strangely, so the best version of this type of film, I know what film you're going to say, is Wolf of Snow Hollow?
Wolf of Snow Hollow, yeah.
For me, the best version of this type of film, it shows that you can do this kind of madcap, here's a lot of different types of characters thing, is Clue. A film from what? The 80s?
Yeah.
Does this kind of thing perfectly and shows you how to do it. And this seems like a pale comparison to...
But then if you look at Clue, if you look at any Agatha Christie stuff, it's always got elements of comedy. Agatha Christie movies are funnier than Werewolves Within and are actually more sort of thrilling and are more mysterious because it doesn't have any I don't feel like it has any moment in it that feels like it's engendering any kind of tension.
No. And
it feels so soulless.
It seems like a lot of bits. Like, here is another bit. Like, oh no, look what this character's doing. He's doing a bit.
Yeah, and I think other than a couple of lines, I can't think of anything in this that made me laugh.
I had a couple of chuckles during it.
And I can't think of anything in it that worked as I don't think it works as a werewolf film. It doesn't work as a whodunit, and I don't think it works as a comedy.
Like I said, you saw a version of this. I didn't see Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Well, Wolf of Snow Hollow is A, funnier than this, B, a better werewolf movie than this, and C, a better police or sort of, law enforcement related story than this. It's a much better film. And this feels like even if that hadn't have come out, I still don't feel like this is good enough.
And I don't know if so obviously the recommendation for this is go watch Wolf of Snow Hollow. I don't know whether part of the disappointment in this comes from the fact that all I'd heard about it is, once it gets going.
Oh yeah, I'd heard. I'd seen great reviews and people were raving about it on Twitter and things like that. And I didn't necessarily buy into it, but I kind of went, oh, okay, well, let's watch it and find out. And it is massively disappointing if you are going in with any expectations, because I feel like it fails to deliver on that premise. I would not recommend.
Same.
It is available on digital platforms if you so wish.
Would recommend Clue from the 80s.
Right, Freaky. Slasher comedy film by Christopher Landon, whose previous work has, been very varied over the decades, but more recently has involved Happy Death Day franchise. So, it's a body swap comedy.
Yeah.
In which a young teen at a high school swaps bodies with a serial killer known as the Blissfield Butcher, who's a sort of local legend who actually turns out to be real. Yeah. Because at the beginning there is a sort of campfire element to the way they're talking about him. But yeah, he's very much real and he's very much murdering people.
He's very much Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. And then, so wakes up the next morning after being attacked by him and realizes that she's now inhabiting his body. And from thence, the story emerges.
Yeah, and it's like your slasher film, but, your serial killer is now in the body of a teenage girl, and your teenage girl is in the body of a serial killer. And it plays a lot on that kind of here's Vince Vaughn, but he's really kind of playing up the fact of this who's in his body. I had a lot of fun with this. I really did. I thought its premise is very much kind of like one of those pitch meeting premises where somebody's just gone, hey, what if we just did a body swap horror? And they've gone, yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because the idea, as an elevator pitch, sounds like fun. And actually, from what they deliver, I don't think it does much too special with it. But for what it is, I think is really enjoyable.
So I think I like this a lot more than you do, I think. I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I know I've got it much higher up my sort of list of releases this year. Reason being, I think it plays with slasher tropes really well. And I think the way it subverts a lot of the stuff that you would find within slasher films and has fun with doing that really works.
100%, yeah.
And I think the more slasher films you have seen in your time, the more you'll end up liking this for what it does with it, I guess.
Yeah, and I like the kind of juxtaposition of, I think Vince Vaughn basically leaves nothing behind. He's just I'm just going to go all out and have fun with this.
Yeah.
And when you say it's on my list, it's very much in the pack of these are films that I've gone, I enjoyed enough, but aren't breaking into kind of my upper echelons. My list is kind of split into those kind of three sections. And it's just in there, and I don't know whether or not it's going to sit in that position. It might move up. But I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think if I was to try and find sort of flaws that I think it has, there's a couple, and I think the script could have been much sharper than it is. And the second issue stems from the fact that the problem with this as a body swap is that it's all one-sided. Yeah. And the problem with it being a sort of with the serial killer being this unspeaking, sort of unrelenting menace, it kind of means you don't get any idea of a personality from the other side of things. So when you do see Millie's body inhabited by the Blissfield Butcher, you don't get much of a...
But there's also times, because I see what you're saying, there are also times in the film where I feel like the serial killer plays up this thing of like, oh, I realise I'm now in this teenage girl's body.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that to my advantage. But it doesn't seem right because it seems to be like a personality that he wouldn't have.
Yeah,
like,
but that's what I'm saying, is that if we'd have seen that that's his personality before, maybe...
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have that issue. But because it's only sort of 2 or 3 moments within the film that he does that, it kind of feels like, oh, okay, whatever. I mean, Catherine Newton is fine in that role, but doesn't get a lot to work with in terms of the script, because... It's like, okay, well, from minute 10, you're going to be in Vince Vaughn's body anyway, so you're going to get maybe 7 or 8 lines in the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like, okay, as menacing as you are in that role, and I think she actually, in terms of physicality, I think she nails it. And in terms of physicality, Vince Vaughn, absolutely, it's the best performance I've seen by him in decades. And I think if you're looking at it from a point of view of like, okay, what are the things that have been dropped here slightly? I think the script could have been a lot sharper, and you want more of that juxtaposition from both sides. I think you can make it funnier and also scarier potentially if you play on that juxtaposition more. But because we only really know about Millie, we only ever really see that side of the switch. Yeah. And I think that's a slight problem.
The only other thing I've really got about it is I think it's a film that outstays its welcome a little bit, because it has an ending, and then it goes past
that postscript is, I feel, unnecessary.
Well, I feel like you could have done something really interesting there, and I'll speak to you about it afterwards, of something that I think that you could have done with it, which I thought they were going to do, but then it just falls into kind of exactly what you expect it to be, and actually, like, it doesn't need to be there. Like, I think you've got an ending.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I would recommend this. This is out in cinemas and soon to be out on VOD, I think, in the next couple of weeks, actually. And in the States, it's been out since like November, December time last year, so it is available there. So that is that.
Another Blumhouse success, I feel.
Yeah, very much so. And, I think trades well off the success of something like Happy Death Day, where I think Christopher Landon is someone who fundamentally understands how to subvert expectations within a genre that can feel really samey. It's nice to have those things that sort of trades on familiarity of the concept, but then also goes, but at the same time, what if we flipped it?
Not enough characters called Tree in this one, though.
No, that is true. Millie's far too normal of a name. Okay, so Guns Akimbo is an Amazon original in the UK, at least. Directed and written by Jason Lee Howden, who previously done Deathgasm, starring Daniel Radcliffe and Samara Weaving. So, video game industry worker Miles.
This is Miles.
He is he trolls the trolls. You described him as a white knight, which was a term that I personally wasn't aware of, but now I am. So he decides that there's enough pain and suffering in the world, so what he needs to do is be mean to the commenters who are being mean. I mean, he's adding to the pain and suffering is what I'm going to say there. But he comments on a video on a website called Schism, which is an illegal sort of death race type scenario, where it's a sort of it's a combination of battle royale, death race,
nerve,
a bunch of nerve, and it involves,
you know us guys, we love us a nerve,
and to be fair, the Purge,
and
it involves basically people engaged in death matches with each other that are then streamed online. But it's illegal behavior, but definitely no one tries to stop it. But also, there's like viewing parties and stuff, and it just seems to be available on the web.
Yeah, it's just this website that, you can watch people kill each other.
Yeah. And he decides, I'm going to comment on there, and he says, I think, go stick your dick in a blender. And that prompts the ire to be expunged by the Schism chief, the head of Schism, who decides, you know what? We've had enough of this guy who's commented once on our thing. He's in the game. They take him, they bolt guns to his hands, and he wakes up and he realizes that he has to kill Nyx, played by Samara Weaving, who seems to be the hot prospect on the Schism.
He seems to be the ultimate killing machine, never misses a shot, but also, maybe she does miss shots when the plot allows her to.
So, look, the game gives away my feelings on this. So the film itself then sort of descends into this slight cat and mouse game for a while of he has to run away from this woman who is, equipped to the teeth with guns, whereas he has these 2 pistols strapped to his hands, and he didn't ever want to be part of this game in the first place.
He's just a normal guy.
He's just a normal guy who was trying to reconnect with his ex-girlfriend, and now he can't do that because he's got guns for hands. And it becomes this sort of cat and mouse game between the two of them, and the plot unfolds that way. So here's the thing. There's a couple of things that don't work here. One is the plot.
Yeah.
Because you're right in that everything we know of Nyx is that she is this ultimate killing machine.
You show us that.
And there is a moment very, very early on in the film where they first encounter each other at Miles's flat. And if she's as good as she's said to be, then he is dead in the doorway.
Yeah.
And yet there's another 90 minutes of movie after that.
And there's like 3 or 4 counters where she misses him every time. You're like, but I've seen you kill a guy from like 100 yards.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen you do that.
And we know what her motivation is, so it's not like she's missing on purpose because her motivation should be clear. The other thing is, I feel like the other thing, there's a couple more. The other things are, the script does feel like it was written by a film student at sort of college, in that it seems to be written like it's internet comments.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Kind of, yes.
Like, a lot of it seems to be people calling each other fuckboy and stuff.
Yeah.
And then sort of doing these snarky comments to each other. I mean, none of it feels like it's real dialogue, which makes me think, am I thinking this is actually not a real life thing?
Well, you said you felt this was like...
It is a video game. It's a video game. And the other issue, and we'll get onto this properly now because we know it impacted you more than it impacted me, but it really still annoyed me quite significantly. The editing of the film and the way it's filmed, the editing is a bigger issue for me, which is it varies in terms of its consistency. It seems to be edited in 5 or 6 different ways, but all of them seem to be inspired by Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright or like Matthew Vaughn.
Yeah.
Or early Ritchie.
Yeah.
And the problem there is it gives certain people in the room a headache.
I had a horrible headache to the point that I went, I can't take paracetamol for this right now because I know if I take paracetamol and come back to this film, I'm just going to get another headache. Yeah. That ain't going to fix things. Like, it's what I call over-directed.
Yeah.
Where it's just too much. Like, it's too frenetic.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that and you do it well, it's fine. But when it's done badly, it's just a mess.
Yeah, it has a sort of frantic energy to it that I think is clearly put in there to try and give you a sense of what this game is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I didn't enjoy that element of it, and I kind of feel like, I don't know, is more of the film's failure to work on the editing, Or is it more on the fact that the plot and the script are as bad as they are?
We could take a little bit of column
I think, yeah.
a little bit of column B.
I think there's probably equal blame all round. But you're 100% right in terms of, like, it feels like it's overdone to the point where you're going, I get that you just wanted to be very sort of hyperactive in terms of the way you've shot the film and you've put it together. But it then just ends up feeling like Suicide Squad did in 2016. There's so many elements of that where I always felt like it just feels like you're watching a music video or doing a video game cutscene that you're just like, have more faith that the thing works. I mean, it doesn't, but have more faith that the thing works in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I know you're more susceptible to that headache happening from...
Yeah, but also...
than I am, certainly.
I can enjoy a frenetic film, and I think I spoke previously about the sins of action directors exchanging us seeing the action with just, here is camera movement.
Yeah.
And it really annoys when it happens because you don't let the action breathe.
Yeah.
And some directors are very good at being able to really harness it. Like you said, Edgar Wright is very good at having a frenetic camera, but allowing you to really see what he wants you to see. And when you're trying to ape that...
Well, and this is the thing, it's only frenetic when it needs to be.
And when you
and I think that's the important distinction.
And you don't do it well, you end up with something like this. And then you try and like take things like from like John Wick, which a lot of action movies do, and you're using CGI blood, and it looks really fake and really bad. Like, you're just adding elements to it. And I understand, you're making a film on a budget. But at the same time, somebody who makes a film on a budget can do it very well when you realise that you play to your strengths. And you've really got to do that. And this film, for me, it just falls down in pretty much every category.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not great.
Yeah, and I think if you talk about the performances as well on top, you could have anyone in these roles because they're given basically nothing to deal with, and it kind of feels like a waste of the star power of Daniel Radcliffe and Samara Weaving, in the sense that Samara Weaving obviously was so great in Ready or Not, and that was a film that really showcased her abilities to be that action sort of heroine that's thrown into something that she's way not qualified for, and yet embraces completely full-bloodedly. And Daniel Radcliffe can do really good performances, and yet neither of them are given anything to work with here that feels like it's anything more than... It really feels emotionless and dull. For a film that tries its best to be as frantic as it tries, it's astonishing that it still manages to be dull.
It's jukebox action. That's what it is.
I don't know what Triggerbox action is.
Jukebox action.
Oh.
Which is, it plays a song that you recognise, and it has a lot of people running around and jumping over stuff.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to distract you from the fact that actually beneath it is pretty vapid. There are people who like this, I know. I know for a fact there are people who like this.
They might be on our review of the year this year.
And,
Unless he decides not to come on now.
Yeah, Paul we know likes this. I've not spoken to him about it, but we know for a fact he likes it. And there are going to be people who really vibe with this, but it's just not for me.
Every film is someone's favourite film apart from Black Widow. We know that. So moving on to a much different film. Much different. Quality-wise, pretty similar. So Space Jam: A New Legacy. This is what is it? Is it a sequel? Is it a reboot?
I think it's in the same universe, but also is it?
I think it's only in the same universe for the Looney Tunes.
Okay.
I think for everyone else, it seems to be completely a new thing that's happened. Because you would have thought Michael Jordan would have spoken about that.
You would have thought people would have gone, hey, remember that time Michael Jordan appeared in a spaceship?
So this is the sequel / reboot to 96's Space Jam, 97 Space Jam. So this time featuring the talents of LeBron James, who is... He's a father, and one of his kids is not necessarily interested in following his dad's footsteps and doesn't really train that hard on the basketball court that they have in the back garden, which is a much more believable house than Michael Jordan's was in the original. Let's never forget the fact that this has actually nailed the compound that LeBron James lives on, rather than the 3-bed semi. So, yeah, his son's more interested in developing this video game that he's been making, and he's really excited to go to video game camp, but he hasn't told his dad that that's the same weekend that basketball camp is. God. And there's a bit of household tension. And
LeBron James is bad dad.
LeBron James says, you know what, to make it up to you, Warner Brothers want to pitch me something. Do you want to come with me? I'm sure that happens all the time. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, sure, I'll come along. And the thing they're pitching him has been developed by one of their algorithms.
Algae rhythm.
Why make algorithms the baddie when they clearly are the baddie IRL? And, I mean, it's basically Seinfeld vision from 30 Rock, where they just put LeBron James into any Warner Brothers property.
And they're like, hey, we've got this great idea. Hey, LeBron James, you could be in Game of Thrones. You mean that series that has ended? Yeah, but look, imagine you're fighting dragons.
You can be on it on HBO Max.
Wink.
And
hey, LeBron, no, we're not making Harry Potter films anymore. What if you were in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter?
The thing is, it paints it as a bad idea, but I guarantee they would do that in a fucking heartbeat.
The discussion's being had.
Yeah. This all came from the fact that this real-life meeting between LeBron James and Warner Brothers executives actually happened, where he gave it a hard pass, and this seems to irk Al G. Rhythm,
the real-life
Don Cheadle himself.
Don Cheadle inside the computer.
And he decides, you know what? I'm going to drag in to the serververse LeBron James and his son. Although initially just takes his son.
Yeah, and then LeBron.
I think... Yeah, but LeBron seems to be collateral damage. Like, I don't think that he knew that he was going to get LeBron.
I think he did.
Look, can I tell you one thing?
Did you nap at this point?
I might have been asleep at that point. Full disclosure, guys. I took micro naps in this film for about 15 minutes, I think.
There's a whole scene that Alex had to be reminded about.
I remember the train.
Just don't remember the Justice League.
I didn't remember the Justice League being there. So... he's dragged into the serververse, and Algae Rhythm says to the son, hey, I really like your game. We're going to play basketball. And I'm going to play basketball against your dad. And your dad has to win to free you and free himself.
And eventually save the whole of humanity.
Save everything. And if he loses...
these people who are zapped into the game somehow.
If he loses, he's stuck in the serververse forever. Sorry, guys. Sorry, no more LeBron-y. Anyway, LeBron then has to go on an adventure with the Looney Tunes,
He's got to get
who are his team, of course. Well, no, yeah. He can get anyone he wants.
Yeah.
And yet he still ends up with the Looney Tunes.
Well, Algae Rhythm's like, oh, send him to the losers. And he goes and meets Bug Bunny. And LeBron's like, oh, I'm going to get all these great people. Like, I'm going to get Superman on my team and stuff like that. And then for some reason, he ends up with the Looney Tunes.
Also, he tries to get Iron Giant.
You said last week.
Yeah, he's stealing my team.
He didn't try and get Porco Rosso, though, strangely.
I don't think Warner Brothers own the rights to Ghibli. So he then assembles all of the Looney Tunes from the first movie.
And they play basketball.
But
basketball that doesn't follow the rules of basketball. Oh, no.
This is video game basketball, and it seems like LeBron's son hasn't been paying attention to how points work either, because he thinks there are points given for style. For being like different things than you are. Like, I think if you transform into like a rocket or something, you get 1 million points.
For not playing basketball?
Yeah. And then also watching the basketball game. This is the most important part of this movie, because this is actually what the movie is everyone. And when I say everyone, I don't mean everyone in the world. There's quite a few people from the world. But more importantly, there's everyone from the serververse.
So...
the serververse is really cool because it's like an advert for everything that Warner Brothers owns.
This film was made by somebody watching Ready Player One and going, hey, what if we did that again and we just basically had everything that Warner Brothers has ever owned? And they had an intern, and he just went through a filing cabinet of properties Warner Brothers owns, and he got each film out and he went, oh, who could we have from, I don't know, Casablanca? Because, The kids who are watching Space Jam really want Casablanca.
So there's a couple of issues here in that first, like when they actually assemble the team, I am convinced this movie was written in the early 2000s because two of the places where the tunes are hiding are The Matrix and Austin Powers 2.
Yeah.
A kid, I mean, anyone under the age of 21 wasn't born when those movies came out.
But this is one of the problems of this film is who is it for?
I can tell you who it's for. The accountants.
Like, is it for kids who don't really know who the Looney Tunes are anymore? Because the thing of them being like, oh, the Looney Tunes are these forgotten characters is kind of true. Warner Brothers have basically forgotten and walked about the Looney Tunes for ages. So it can't be for the children who are really into that. It has to kind of be for the adults who want to take their kids to see something that reminds them of the 90s.
Their youth.
Space Jam. But there's nothing for the adults there.
Are you sure there's nothing for the adults there? Because there's the bit where LeBron James dunked a basketball.
Well, the thing
and
is,
everyone loves LeBron James.
So we watched the original Space Jam before this. And I think that really helped because it really flagged up some of the problems I have with this film. For one, it's about 40 minutes longer than the original.
Yeah.
And the original, like, by the half hour in, they're pretty much already at the basketball game.
The original doesn't mess around. It knows that the concept is only as strong as it is. And it goes, right, well, okay, we need to get him there, and we need to get him onto the court with the tunes, and then we need to just play. And that's all the film has to be.
In the new one, you don't really meet Bugs Bunny till about 30, 40 minutes in, I feel. You don't see them do anything loony until about another 20 minutes after.
I mean, I'd argue they don't really get loony.
And the stuff when they start doing it on the basketball court, which you expect from like the first one, it's probably the final 20 minutes you get some of that. And it seems soulless. It's really soulless because it's like you're not doing anything with this property. Also, if you have a basketball game that has no rules, and I argued this with you, and I don't know if you probably still agree with me, but if you have a basketball game that has no rules and no affiliation with the idea of basketball, when you are a million points behind, it means nothing. Because you can then earn 1,000,000 points just by, I don't know, jumping and kicking somebody in the face. You get 1,000,000 style points. And that game has there's no reason for it to be basketball anymore.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I know my answer to this question. Were you still invested in the movie at that point? the point they started playing the basketball and you realised there's no stakes to this game. I think it's because... Were you at all invested?
Kind of, because I really enjoyed Space Jam. Like, when we
but you'd had an hour and a bit already of not enjoying Space Jam: A New Legacy.
But when we watched the original, I still really enjoyed that.
You know what? Actually, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think is the problem. And they call it out in the movie. And I'm just like, tread carefully, for you tread on your own fucking grave here. Marvin the Martian says that first half was interminable. And he's right. Because that basketball game, I feel like, lasts way longer than the original. I feel like it lasts a solid hour of the movie. And the first half is just the fucking worst. It drags and drags. And then the second half, they come out and they're a bit more loony. But not that much more loony. And it doesn't have... Okay, it doesn't have enough of the spirit of the original, which ultimately was still a cash grab, we know. But it was a better cash grab because it wasn't... It was trading off the success of the adverts, and it was trading off the success of, well, Michael Jordan is the biggest person in the world right now. And the Looney Tunes were still relatively relevant.
And the interesting thing is this. LeBron James has much more personality than Michael Jordan. I'm convinced of that, right? But he's also a sports person and not an actor. And you're still asking him to act. And you put more kind of onus on him to perform. And actually, what happens in the original when you got Michael Jordan is he is fairly stoic and the looniness happens around him.
Yeah.
In this...
He's very much the Michael Caine of Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes. In this one, you've got LeBron, who you're asking to do more anyway, in terms of actually having him have this kind of family drama. Mm-hmm. And then you don't have much looniness go around him. When the looniness happens, I can't believe I keep saying the word looniness, but when it happens, you then try and get LeBron to kind of be involved in this and do his kind of stuff. And it doesn't work. You need that kind of like pivot for things to happen around.
Yeah.
To then have, Michael Jordan had that one kind of moment, like when he does something toony in the original. But I never think he really goes anything from really stoic Michael Jordan, of this guy who's brought in to basically ball and be this figure that he is. I don't know, Space Jam: A New Legacy it's a cash grab of an advertisement for Warner Brothers.
Yeah. It's
almost like they didn't realise that some of the worst parts of Ready Player One was people just going, oh, look, it's so-and-so from so-and-so. Like, the Droogs from fucking A Clockwork Orange are in the background. What child is that for?
Yeah.
Like, it's not. It's not there for children. It's there for Warner to be like, oh, don't we have a giant catalogue? And it's vacuous and it's soulless.
An Iron Giant catalogue.
And it's one of those things where you go, you have given us nothing here. Mm-hmm. You have provided nothing.
It's barely a film, and yet it lasts 2 hours.
And you're supposed to, in this film, really celebrate the history of these things that have been around for years. Like, the Looney Tunes are like staples.
Oh, I thought you meant the history of the Droogs and the history of Pennywise.
The history of animation, like, the Looney Tunes have been around for years, and the reason they are endearing and ongoing, and the reason people still love that style of animation and will go back and watch those things again and again and again, is because they are fun.
Yeah.
And you take all of the fun out of them in this film. It is awful, like genuinely awful, to the point where I don't think it's just the worst film I've seen this year. It's one of the worst films I've seen in a long time.
I mean, it's currently still ahead of Justice League for me, but that might just be to troll the fans. Would not recommend. It's available, but
I recommend go and watch the original Space Jam. It's like for £3 on like anywhere you rent stuff. Go watch that again, because that's actually fun, and I think your children, if you want to watch a kids movie, will get a lot more out of that than they would this.
They'll say, who's this strange man in the middle, though?
Like, I still enjoyed the original. I don't know if it's the nostalgia hit, but I found there was a lot of fun and a lot of laughs in that first one still.
I think when we went back to it, I enjoyed it much less than I was hoping to. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that it's probably been 20 years since I've seen it. There
was a lot of it where I had to stop myself saying the line before it happened, because I thought
that would have been really irritating.
I thought you'd think I'm a nerd.
Well, no, I think that already. So that's everything for this week. It's been a long one. Thanks for sticking with us. Last week we did a short one, so we tacked the extra onto this one.
Balance it up, guys.
So you can't fucking complain.
Thank you for joining us, though. We appreciate you listening. If you want to contact us, let us know if you've seen any of these films.
Yes.
Please let us know what you think.
You can find us on Facebook and on iTunes.
Twitter at Dinosaur 15
That's the one.
The best way to contact us, because that's pretty much the only thing we respond on. We are available on wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe, tell your friends. Johnny Neves did the theme song, as ever.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a joke about that.
This time,
you've been the host.
This time was a jock jam. Follow us on Twitch. Hopefully this week will be the week we start streaming on there.
If we have electricity back, it will be.
Oh yeah, shit. That's
we've chosen the one day. The day we've chosen to stream is the one day we don't have electricity for a number of hours.
So potentially on Wednesday we'll be doing a stream. It's basically looking at these.
It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I might do some characters.
It looks like we can potentially do a live stream of just kind of like us playing games and having a bit of a chat, really.
With some celebrity guests.
So come join us. Basically, subscribe Dinosaur Man Pod on Twitch. It'll tell you when we've gone live. You have been the host, Alex.
You've been the host.
And until
Don't you dare put that on me when you know this is going to be our least well-reviewed episode ever.
And until next time, guys.
Space Jam: A New Legacy is an advert.
Oh, I thought you were doing like a pun name, and then I was like, but it's just said the name of the film.
I was hoping to do a pun, but I ran out, and I thought Pegasus isn't good enough.
It is just an advert. Bye.